Hi y'all, it's Dr. E and I'm here with your week 5 instructional video for English 2323. So I'm just going to go to D2L and show where to go and what to do. So the first thing to note is we do have an announcement here about those self-assessments and the grading involved in the Literary League work. So if you have any questions about that, definitely let me know, but it is here for you to peruse. Hopefully you've taken a look at that. If we go to week 5 in the content area, it looks like a typical week in some ways because, of course, we have something on Thursday and Sunday, but we do have a new assignment to address this week, but I will cover a bit of that. Plus, you also have a video. So we have some reading to do, which is Arthur Conan Doyle's biography, and then The Speckled Band, which is a short story. These are not in the course text that we have, which frustrates me because it should be there. It's in the much longer version of the text, but so it's provided here as a document, so just take some time to read through both of those things. The quiz questions will relate to them, so take your time. Additionally, we have the written response assignment, which you will have a video for, so make sure you're taking that time to watch it. There is a prompt associated with that assignment. So new things this week, but it should feel just a little bit familiar. We have that participation quiz, and then next week we're moving into Robert Louis Stevenson. So just keep that on your mind as we move forward. This is the written response video, so take some time to watch that. There are some quiz questions related to it, and while we're on the subject of the quiz, the random word for the quiz this week is bird. Just bird. So we also have these items to review. It is the template for the written response assignment because it does need to be in MLA format, and then you have the guidelines here. And then there is an updated course schedule. So if you'll remember, we had a course schedule that went up to this week. So I've provided the rest of the semester. I would love for you to take a look at it and let me know if you see anything that seems inconsistent or confusing. I've been looking at it for hours to just double check, but I need extra eyes on it, you know, as a peer reviewer to let me know if there are any things that need to be corrected, because I wouldn't put it past myself to have something in there that might be confusing. All right, so this is the visual version of it if you just want to click and quickly access the information, but then there's also the downloadable version if you would prefer that. So if we go back to the overall week 5 module, for the to-do list, it looks very short, but it is a bit deceiving because we do have that written response assignment. So I'm asking you for a couple of paragraphs related to Arthur Conan Doyle. So it does require that you have the biography in mind as well as the short story. So in one paragraph, I want you to connect Doyle's life to the short story. Okay, so what influences from his life are you seeing, right? So a lot of times there are different schools of thought when it comes to literature. One of them is that the piece of literature stands on its own. The historical context is not a part of it. The author's life is not a part of it. Clearly, we have not been working from that kind of literary critic perspective. We are very much trying to consider the context associated with what we're reading. So we want to keep the historical information in mind as well as information about the author should that somehow come into play with what we read, because it's hard for me, this isn't true for everybody, but it's hard for me as someone who is you know, reading literature, trying to analyze it from different perspectives, to critique it. It's hard for me to separate the author's life from the writing, just as it's hard to separate the historical context. So we want to make those connections. In an additional paragraph, I want you to think about one character of your choice and really work to characterize that character. So if you click on this, it will take you to the Purdue OWL website's link, or I'm sorry, the Purdue Online Writing Lab website's page that is associated with those literary terms. So characterization is right there if you need to review that or revisit that. So I want you to make sure that you're utilizing brief quotes or phrases directly from Doyle's story to support your analysis, right? So if you claim that a character is very frugal with money, what in the text supports that? What is a short quote that shows that this is a character who is kind of obsessive about finances, really wants to save, is really, thinking about money from the beginning to the end, essentially. So what are the brief phrases that reflect that? What are the adjectives, or what is a sentence that the character says that relates to that? So it's making those connections for sure, because we are trying to be literary critics here. All right, so next, find a passage in which Doyle utilizes important imagery. So the same thing goes here. If you need a refresher on imagery, it's just looking at those terms that really, they create an image in our mind, right? So they're using that kind of creative language. So, if we're thinking about something like a setting, if the author describes the setting as picturesque and based on a fall atmosphere, and, the leaves were, falling from the trees and green and yellow, and, all these things that may be associated with fall, that is language that helps us create an image in our mind, right? Instead of us having to do so much of the work to tell that story in our mind's eye, right? So you want to find the sentences, the phrases, those things that are adding that element of imagery, okay? So I put here a note that each paragraph needs to be about 6 to 7 sentences precisely because we are utilizing those quotes to support our ideas, right? For every quote that you share, you should have some sort of explanation or introduction, because one of my pet peeves, and I'm just going to share it, because why not? It's only fair to let you know what my pet peeves are, is when quotes are just dropped into paragraphs, because that is not helpful to your audience at all. And part of what we strive to do is to effectively communicate our ideas regarding literature. So if you start your sentence with a quote, you're not leading us anywhere. You're not telling us what that paragraph is going to be about. That's the work of a topic sentence, and that's where we should focus our energy, in that first sentence, not a quote. When people just drop quotes into a paragraph without any explanation, it's confusing, it's jarring, it takes your audience out of the rhythm of your ideas and kind of creating their own picture based on your ideas. And you have to provide context. Why is this quote important? Why is it relevant? And when people end paragraphs with quotes, again, there's no room to explain it. There's no room for you to tell your audience, how is this quote connected to your ideas? So part of it is also understanding that we have some work to do when we're analyzing and critiquing literature. And part of that is making sure that our audience has no questions, right? When we drop quotes without explaining them, sometimes people are going to think, well, how does this quote connect to what this person is arguing or what this person is analyzing? So what is very clear to you about the quote may not be clear to everybody. So in order to utilize that quote in a resourceful way, we want to explain it. So work to have that quote within your paragraph, offer an explanation. I think one of the problems with starting a paragraph with a quote is that we may have been taught it in the past, but we're past that kind of writing, because if we start a paragraph with a quote, oftentimes we take up the rest of the paragraph just talking about the quote, instead of that paragraph being about our ideas and our analysis. Do you see what I mean? This is something that takes practice. Writing about literature in general takes practice, right? But these are just methods, I think, that will prove helpful over the long run of this semester and any future semester where you're writing about anything that you're reading. Use those quotes only to support your own ideas, unless you're asked for something else, unless you have an instructor or professor who's saying, I want you to choose these quotes and offer an explanation of each, and that's all you're doing in your paragraphs, right? So something for us to start practicing. And I put here, be sure to reference page numbers when offering those quotes. So we still need to follow MLA formatting guidelines, even if we're utilizing a text that is not in our course book, right? We still want to offer that information. If page numbers aren't given, then you can't supply what you don't have, right? But when they are given, you need to make sure that you're referencing them and make sure you're following MLA format. So it's all the nitty gritty, because these are things that, especially for somebody like me, I work with MLA. I live in MLA with all the grading I do, with all the reading I do. So when something is not following MLA formatting, whether it's a quote or whether it's the spacing or the template is, or your document is off a little bit because of this, that, or the other, it takes me out of your ideas, and it forces me to recognize that, oh, these are the kind of foundational things that we want to have correct, so that you're not taking your audience away from your ideas. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, just let me know. Post in that Q&A discussion board, or shoot me an email if this is just something that's not kind of resonating with you. All right, so that is the written response, it'll make more sense when you watch that video that explains the information. And so the last thing is the week 5 quiz. And like I said, that quiz is based on the videos, the reading, the biography, all of that. So just make sure you're taking your time with the information and addressing all of those things that are due this week. All right, I believe that's it. If there's something that you know that I've missed in explaining in this week's video, please let me know in the Q&A discussion board, or again, send me an email. Thanks, y'all. You have been working so hard, 5 weeks already, so just keep up your energy. We're almost to the midway point where we can see that light at the end of the tunnel, but you're going to do great this week. Good luck.